I'm going to go ahead and begin. Today's training is, I'm calling it kind of life balance. And I'm going to talk kind of about the professional world, but this doesn't only relate to the professional world. Really, it's just like a discussion on how do we make time for the things that are most important to us in our lives in a really crazy, busy world. And so it's going to relate to, I think, everybody in some way if you're alive and sentient in 2021. Ironically enough, a lot of the people who are struggling with some of the specific issues in this aren't able to make it live because they're really busy with work. So I expected that, but I am recording it for them. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to jump into it. And I'm kind of, I'm going to call it getting back to living in the modern rush. I'm going to preface this by saying I'm sort of even hesitant to bring this on because this is sort of outside my lane as a health coach, but at the same time, not being able to carve out time because we're busy and we're rushed and oftentimes because we're working so hard is one of the biggest barriers to getting healthy. And I'm only going to speak from my personal perspective, from what my clients have done that's seen success, and from coaches that I've worked with. So I do think I'm going to definitely make an effort to stay in my lane. Okay, so the first question before we say anything is, are you really ready to change in order to make more margin in your life for the things that matter? Again, this is going to be practical advice from coaches, personal experience, and clients who've made more space in their life for living. But every single one of them have something in common. All the actions that are taken in here are actions that need to be taken. And if you're not ready to, it's going to require a willingness to have uncomfortable conversations, take action, and rethink how you spend your time and energy. If you're not ready yet for that, or if you're not willing to kind of do some of those uncomfortable things, don't watch the video. You're not ready. It's fine. It's this. I don't want to waste your time because it's gonna challenge you to be a little bit uncomfortable and push yourself outside of your comfort zone. And a lot of people think, there's just no way I can get more margin in my life. If that's where you are, you probably won't get more margin in your life, and it's probably not the best time for you to engage this. Does that kind of make sense? Is that kind of clear? Some of this is going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but I think it is possible if you're willing to make it possible, and if you have the mindset right now to make that possible. Another thing that's going to happen is some of the things that I say, you're going to say, well, that sounds good. Like that actually sounds good, but I don't actually believe it's going to apply to me. And that is going to be because I might use some specific examples, and you might say, well, that's going to be impossible for me. I'm going to argue that everybody's going to think that, but I'll say these basic principles have been applied to every industry, every kind of job under the sun. So employees who work for somebody, entrepreneurs who are starting a business, CEOs who are running a business, and even those who are retired. All of these are people that are trying to find space to accomplish the really important things in their life. And some of the things that I'm going to say here have worked in all these circumstances. So there's always going to be a hesitancy to say, yeah, that sounds good for somebody else, but you don't understand my situation. That's not going to work. And that actually may be true, but keep an open mind because most of the time you're going to be able to apply some of this. Does that kind of make sense as well? Is that how some of this is going to seem like, well, that sounds great for somebody else, but but I want us to kind of fight the urge to say, well, there's no way it could apply to me for XYZ reason. Does that kind of make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, so what's the problem? I think we kind of all know the problem. The problem is hustle, busy, hurry, whatever you want to call it. Even if you're not starting a business right now, when someone asks you how you're doing, what's your response? What does everybody on this call probably say? Last time you got asked, how are you? What did you respond with? What did you say, Sally?
Doing well.
Okay. One step further than that. What is, every time I get on a call with somebody, I say, hey, how are you doing this week? Good, but they say good, but what?
I'm busy.
Good, but really busy, right? Does that resonate? Anybody not answer that way?
Depends on the week.
Yeah, depends on the week. But look, I'm on calls with people every day. I probably hear this 3 times a day. And look, being busy is not a problem. But the way that we're busy is just like we're constantly kind of pushed to the edge, feeling like we don't have time to focus on the things that are really important. One of those is your health, but that's only one. Here are some recent quotes on this that I've really heard that have really made an impact on me. This is from a pastor named John Mark Comer, who's done a lot of work on this specific topic. I'm going to reference him a bunch. He says, to walk with Jesus is to walk with a slow, unhurried pace. Hurry is the death of prayer and only impedes and spoils our work. It never advances it. I love that. He quotes someone else who says, hurry is the enemy of the spiritual life. Another one I heard, that there's an article in the New York Times that was really famous. It's called The Busy Trap. He says, almost everyone I know is busy. They feel anxious and guilty when they aren't either working or doing something. And that could also be family, So I'm not working, but then I fill up every minute with my family. And again, all that is good stuff. But a lot of times, does anybody else feel anxious if they're not working or taking care of their family? Or no? Wow, I definitely. Maybe
Not anymore.
Yeah.
When my father was alive, that was constant. I was getting up in the morning and going to work so early so that I could get done by 2:30 or 3, so I could be in Kingston by 4 to help feed him dinner, and and staying until 7 or 8 until they got in bed, and then go back home and do this again. My sister was there and all day, and I was usually there till they got to bed. So
that's great. A lot of folks that I work with are taking care of a family member right now. And that's a constant work, and
you're a little off mic.
How about this?
That's better.
Okay. Yeah. So for some reason, I think my mic has been messing up recently. Let me know again. Just give me like a thumbs down if I'm off mic again.
Yeah. You see, I don't think that I'm guilty about it.
Okay.
Or even anxious about doing a lot and needing to do a lot. I feel more like I'm anxious because I do have too much and I'm not allowing time.
Okay, that's similar. I would say that falls in line. You're anxious because you've got a lot of responsibilities to take care of. If you're not taking care of those, the anxiety is going to increase. So I think that's right in line there. Here's some ancient wisdom on this. St. Francis de Sales says, never be in a hurry, do everything quietly in a calm spirit. Do not lose your inner peace for anything, whatever, even if your whole world seems upset. And I kind of roll my eyes at that. I'm like, never be in a hurry? Like, that's crazy. Like, should you actually never be in a hurry? I don't know. But the point is, like, that there really is a lot of ancient wisdom says to us, like, hey, like hurry is your enemy. It's actually not making you do any better. And then I love this one. Nature doesn't hurry, yet everything is accomplished. Even though it's Lao Tzu, it kind of makes me think of Christ when he says, like, consider the ravens, consider the wildflowers. They're taken care of. They just do their thing, and they accomplish. They eat and they feed. The wildflowers are clothed, and they're going to be picked up and they're going to die from the next season, but they get clothed and they get their nourishment.
Andrew, on that, I've spent, I don't know, 4 or 5 days stuck in Psalm 1. And it's the verse that the righteous man is like a tree planted by the water that produces its fruit in season. And I think one of the problems we run into is that we feel like we're supposed to produce 24/7.
No.
And we were designed for seasons of productivity, not constant productivity. We have to have a Sabbath.
Also, like a tree planted firmly is like not rushing around everywhere. It is where it is at the present. And actually, honestly, I could have titled this like being present. Like really the goal of what we're driving for is to be present amidst having a lot of obligations and a lot of work. I love that, Jenna. Okay, I'm going to ask y'all a question. And I'm going to ask this to working people. What would you do if you had more vacation time at your work? Like, what if your employer came up to you and said, you get 8 more days of vacation this year? What would you do?
I'd cash it in for money.
Okay, you cash it in for money. Anybody else?
I would take it. I know I'm not working, but I have in the past, and
Yeah.
I've taken time off without pay just to take extra vacation.
Yeah. Okay, so Mary, you're in the minority. Jan, I think you're in the minority too. Karen, you are the majority. So last year, only 23% of employees took the time off that they were entitled to. 9% took no time off. American workers left 768 million days of vacation on the table. So we're not even taking, and this is paid time off. We're not even taking the time off that we're given. So the crazy question is, what would you do if you had more vacation? Most of us still wouldn't take it. And that's increasing. So the amount of time that we're not taking is increasing, which means, work is taking more and more of our time.
My late husband would take vacation to work around the house, to do projects around the house. So he really didn't even do vacation.
Mm-hmm. So that kind of goes to this. Sorry, where did that go? The busy trap. They feel anxious and guilty when they aren't working or doing something to promote their, and so they're not working at work, but then you're working around the house.
But a lot of employers, kind of frown. If I was to go to my employer and say I want 3 solid weeks off in a row to take this big long trip to Europe,
Yeah.
they would probably poo-poo that. But
is that how much time you have? 3 weeks?
No, it's I get a lot more than that because I've been there for a while. And it doesn't roll off for 3 or 4 years. You could build 3 or 4 years worth before it starts rolling off. But and I've never been in that predicament. But if I, another option I think would work good for me would be to say, okay, well then I'm going to take every Friday off or every Monday off.
Yeah,
And then they would probably buy into that better than they would, I'm going to take 3 weeks off to get this time. Like we've got a DBA at work, and he got the letter that he was getting ready to lose something like 2.5 weeks of vacation. He got that like a week ago, and our boss told him take it before the end of the year. So now we have a staff meeting this morning, and all these people need this stuff for year end from him. And he's taken off, it's like.
Yeah. Okay. So a couple of things. So Karen, the next where we're going to go after this is I'm actually going to try to help build like a sales pitch to your coworkers and to your boss to really actually make it. So like, I'm not arguing necessarily take 3 weeks off at once. Like, the point isn't to work less. The point is to work better and to find balance. So I'll get to there in a second. But the other thing is, if you really did take 3 weeks off, your boss might poo-poo it, but they would also be really jealous of the pictures you'd be sending off Italy. But yeah, so Karen, I think, so where do we start? Let's build a case for your boss or for your clients, whatever it is, for why it's not just about taking 3 weeks off, but that if you have more balance in your life, you're actually going to be a better worker. So I'm a very pro work person. I think good work is like one of the greatest contributors to an improving world that there is. And so that's why we need healthy, spiritually alive people doing good work. So, Karen, if you needed to take 3 weeks off to be healthy and spiritually alive and return to your work, maybe do that. And that's the case that you make to your employer. But you also might find yourself fully alive if you take those Fridays off. So I'm going to focus on 4 aspects of our day-to-day lives. And we're going to start with email. I kind of talked about this on Tuesday. This is definitely something that I've applied in my life and that clients have applied in theirs that has made a really big difference. How many on this call have email that they've got to kind of address every day? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. How many times a day do you check your email? Or is it always open? Are you getting notifications on your phone? Your
It's
phone?
always open, and I was thinking about restricting that, and I got an instance this morning where I didn't read it for 2 hours. My boss was like, can you do something about this? And it was an email.
Yeah, yeah.
I keep my email open all the time at work, but I never, but it's not my work email. I don't pull it up on my phone or at home.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So you have a little bit of a chunk there. So here's what where I would start with email. Most people always have their email up or they have notifications coming up. Karen, we could talk about you specifically here in a second, but I highly recommend. Okay, so here's just some stats. The average person checks their email 15 times a day. And then in a recent study, they had people limit the checking of their email to 3 times a day. Those people's stress levels decreased significantly, and they also felt they were more able to complete their most important work, and they felt a greater sense of accomplishment at work. So, Karen, in regards to like that email, if we want to structure you to be a really happy, healthy worker, constant email buzzing is usually actually going to take you away from the things that are most important. If your boss is just like demanding fast responses, if it's actually an emergency, we can direct it to like your phone or something so that you really can give it your attention immediately. But if you really can survive with 2 hours, just setting like hey boss, like I check my email at 11 and at 3:30 and at 5. So I'll get to you at those times. And usually actually the people around you can get used to that rhythm and can understand the way you work if you do that.
Where I work, I think the dilemma is they want a written record,
Yeah.
And it's like
a written record.
you almost have to have that conversation with every single person. Listen, I'll provide you with a written record when we're all well and done with this. But if it's an emergency, call me.
Yeah. Yeah. So Karen, do they need the written record immediately? Again, like I would even put in your email signature. Yeah. So the
No, they don't.
Yeah. So the case that you would build, Karen, is, hey, look at this study. In order for me to effectively manage my email, I don't have it on all the time because it's distracting me from writing the written record of the emails that I'm checking. So you can see in my email signature, I've told you the 2 times a day that I check it, and you notice that I diligently respond at those times a day, and I will provide a written record for my work at the end of every week. And usually people around you will be like, hey, Karen, that actually really works. Can you teach me how to do that? I would strongly recommend limit your email checking to twice a day. If you can't bring yourself to do that yet, start with 3 times a day and then move down to twice once you see how it works. What about people that have 400 emails a day? Dr. Pardue is a good example. He gets about 400 emails within his, electronic medical record every day. What do y'all think about that? What do you do when you get 400 emails?
Well, there's some common ones that I segregate out. They're just informational messages to let me know that something, this or that is okay, or it's not okay. And I filter those out, and I'm probably not real good at going over where I filter them to, but I can always go back and check them if problems arise, to see, did that work okay?
Yeah. But so you don't constantly need every update on things that have been okay. You can put those somewhere else and give me your.
Right. Yeah. I it's called email rules. And they usually have something in the subject, that you can say, whenever I get something with this in the subject, put it over in this folder. And that way it's not in the main folder of things you need to pay attention to.
Yeah, perfect. So sectioning it off, that's great. What I was going to say about, there's a client that I know will watch this who brought up, the 400 emails. Well, like you can't, studies have shown that like people are pretty good at accomplishing 2, maybe 3 goals in a day. Like if you're getting 400 emails, there's not really a system in the world that's going to help you. You can't go through 400 emails in a day. So you're not going to be able to attend to those well if it's always buzzing, you're probably also not going to be able to attend them well just by chunking it up and checking. So that's a broader issue you're going to have either way you do it. So that might be which one where you can enlist the help of others. You know, if you and you're a supervisor at your work and you've got 3 other supervisors and you're all getting 400 emails a day, hey guys, like, how can we change this system? Because all of us know that we can't actually manage and engage 400 emails in a day. So how can we? You know, one thing you could do is a FAQ sheet that answers the most common questions. A lot of those emails are questions that come in. Can you direct people to that FAQ in your email signature, something like that? So I just know that's the first time, that's a common objection to, like, hey, let's check your email just a couple of times. They say, well, I get hundreds a day. Like, well, are you getting through them each day? I say no. Well, then you're right. You're probably not going to get through them if you just check email a couple times a day, but you're already not doing it. So that's just kind of something to note there. Here's another one: screen time. Everybody on your phone, whether it's Android or iPhone, as long as you got a smartphone, you have a screen time report that you can regularly get. And we hear so often, you know, I have no time in my life for the things that I want to do. I encourage everybody to give yourself an objective analysis of how much time you're on your screens. Has anybody done this recently? Anybody looked at their screen time?
You've gone from preaching to meddling.
Well, I'm working on it myself. So my screen time is an active goal in my life as well.
Yes, at your direction, I am monitoring it. And yes, there is a trend. As a matter of fact, yesterday I had half a day off. I had an appointment at 1. So I worked in the morning and I came home and I worked on my Christmas cards, and I just had something playing in the background, and it ended up being 7 hours of screen time.
Yeah.
Before the day was over.
I have the same thing if I do my Zooms on my phone,
Yeah.
you know, or whatever, it just adds it up. So I have to kind of think when I see that statistic it's showing me, I have to think, oh, how many videos did I listen to, you know, that I wanted to listen to? How much music did I listen to? How many Zooms did I do?
And it breaks it down by app. So you can look at, like, how much, am I really on Facebook for an hour a day? Like, I had no idea, you know, so you can break that down by app. And I work on my phone too. So a lot of times I'm like, oh my goodness, I had 5 hours of screen time today. Did I waste 5 hours? No. But if you look at your screen time, you will usually discover there's at least 30, 40 minutes a day that you could argue, ooh, that was a little bit mindless.
Do you have an iPhone?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so do I.
Yeah.
But I get a weekly report.
Yeah, you could do a daily report. You could do a weekly report. You can set restrictions on your screen time so that you're not on, you know, social media more than 30 minutes in a day, you know, whatever that looks like.
Oh, I didn't know I could set restrictions.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where do you
it'll-
go to
it'll
find
co-
that?
What's that?
Where
Sally?
do you go to find that?
So you can just search. So if you go to your home page and you swipe to the left, you can just search screen time. It's in your settings. And like my daily average is 3 hours and 5 minutes. And I'm certainly not wasting 3 hours and 5 minutes, but I'm definitely seeing, like, oh my goodness, like, I'm in apps that I did not even realize that was 45 minutes. And I was on.
If you use a Droid, it's also in the settings under digital well-being.
Nice, digital well-being. I like that. That sounds a little dystopian, but also good. So give yourself, no matter where you are, just go ahead, look at your screen time and give yourself an objective analysis, like how good are you doing? And one thing you'll say is, so one objection is, yeah, but it's work, and that's fine. You know, okay. So you know, you're not wasting all that time that you're on your phone, you're working. Another one that people say is, well, I'm not wasting time because I'm only on my screens, like for example, okay, this is, I'm not calling anybody out in particular, but you can call yourself out if this is you. I'm not wasting 45 minutes on Facebook a day. I'm only on Facebook during a meeting that I'm uninterested in. So it's like, oh, I didn't waste it because I was already, you know, I was doing something. And that's a spectrum. That may not be, it may be a little on the nose.
I had a boss that disallowed us to even bring our cell phone to a meeting.
Yeah. So and that there's wisdom to that. So it's like, so I'm not wasting the time because I'm multitasking. Like I'm doing something else. Well, and then we're going to talk about multitasking here in a little bit. So, but basically multitasking doesn't work. So average time spent on phones. This is worse for younger people, but it's still it's worse for people over the age of 40 than I would have thought it was. So according to a survey, nearly half of respondents stated that on average they spent 5 to 6 hours, not including work-related smartphone use. 5 to 6 hours. That's higher than you probably think. It's higher because young people are on their phone that much, but people over the age of 40 are probably closer to three hours of non-work related screen time. So again, like let's go back to this. Hustle, bustle, hurry, busy. We're always being stimulated. The screen is always calling for our attention. Our email is up. We got that. I was going to sit down and do some work, and boop, I got an email notification. Now my attention's there. All that we're talking about is like, where is our attention going? How much of that screen is borrowing your attention? And if there's 15 apps taking your attention each day, like think about what that's doing to your brain. You're constantly bouncing from one thing to the next. 80-20. Has anybody ever heard of the 80-20 rule? I'm not going to show that screen yet. Anybody ever heard of this?
Yes.
Okay, what's the 80-20 rule? Oh wait, you just
Actually, I've heard it backwards. It's 20% of the church members give 80% of the money.
okay, and that sounds bad, but until you realize that the 80-20 rule is a rule, it's the way the universe works. So I actually have a running list on my phone because I'm fascinated by, it's called Pareto. Pareto was a scientist who discovered that in his garden, 20% of the pea pods produced 80% of the peas in his garden. And so the next year, what did he do? Well, he crossbred the 20% productive peas with each other. And then the next year, he quadrupled his garden output. So I have a list of, right now it's about a couple hundred things that have Pareto distributions. 20% of all points, 80% of all points scored in the NBA come from about 5% of the players. And 80-20, it's actually usually skewed more than that. It's actually usually 90-10 or 99-1. So 20% of criminals commit 80% of crimes. It's actually something like 5% of investments yield 90% of revenue. 20% of drivers cause 80% of accidents, 80% of pollution from 20% of factories. 20% of salespeople usually sell 80% of a company's revenue. So how does this relate to your life? Well, it probably applies to your daily work life in a couple of ways. 20% of sources probably cause 80% of your unhappiness and stress. How many of you work for clients? You have specific clients that you've got to make happy. Okay, Karen, do you have, most of your clients are actually probably okay, but there's a couple of recurring clients that a common mindset is, I've heard that said, here's a fire I started, you fix it.
Most of them think that they're my only client, and that when they call, I should drop and jump.
How many problem clients do you have like that? Is it just a couple or is it all of them?
No, yeah, a lot.
Okay. Yeah, so it might be 80% of your clients are bad clients,
Okay, so when you're having trouble with your computer, or you're having trouble with something associated with an application you're using on your computer, you want immediate results. You don't want, can I call you back in 4 hours?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and there's certainly an aspect of some clients are really difficult to work with. But usually what you'll find is that a small percentage of your clients perpetuate most of your stress and unhappiness. Or the clients that, it's actually, you only get 3 calls like that a week. You get 15 calls in a week. 3 of those calls are just angry clients that just need a result right now. So, don't get too lost in the percentages. here is a lot of people, 20% of the tasks that they accomplish give them 80% of the fullness that they feel in their work. So this is a very common one. Like, hey, I only a small percentage of what I do in my work is like really meaningful to me. Does that resonate with anybody? There's like a small percentage of what you do in your work that really lights you up.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I think what I've found is the really successful people are the ones that figure out how to offload the 80% that they don't enjoy and really just focus on the things that they enjoy and do really well. That's a topic for a whole nother, like, that's a whole other thing. But most of us really, like, I really love when a client gets a great result, we lay out a long-term plan for them. We make a couple of small adjustments and they grow and 6 months down the line, they've made a really, really massive transformation in their health. That doesn't actually make up a large percentage of my working time. Got to spend time organizing spreadsheets, creating content, so I'm trying to find how do I create a system that allows me to spend more time helping clients just really focus on getting great results. And that's what's going to make me a happy, productive, healthy coach. So here's the Pareto, here's the 80-20 you want to avoid at all costs. I spend 80% of my time doing meaningless, tedious tasks and 20% of my time being effective. Okay, be honest, your employer isn't here. Who feels like you spend most of your time being ineffective and only a small percentage of your time doing the things that really matter?
I do.
I have to speak for my daughter. She's a school teacher.
Yeah. She probably spends a ton of time. Medical providers is a great example.
Mhm.
Everybody is frustrated that they only get to see their doctor for 7 minutes, right? Okay, well, imagine how frustrated your doctor is that after that 7 minutes, he's got to spend 41 minutes logging it into the EMR. Totally dysfunctional system. Completely takes the doctor away from doing what he does well. Yeah, Jana.
And then we don't do what he tells us.
And then you don't do what he tells you and he doesn't have time to follow through. So a happy, healthy, again, this is not like I am pro good work. That's why we need to establish balance. Like, let's find a way to spend more time doing what we do effectively and doing what we do well and doing what we do that we enjoy. So I could almost guarantee you most people really resonate with this. I spend most of my time doing things that are not effective, and I only spend a small percent of my time really accomplishing the goals that I know are most important. So how do we find how to do more of that?
I'm going to interject here. It's interesting when you mention a school teacher feeling that that type of percentage breakout of their day. And I can speak for kids in school, college kids. They feel like it's in high school. They feel like they are in the 20-80. They're wasting 80% of their time and only 20% of it is actually productive.
Mm-hmm.
Or they could get through it all in only 20% of the time that they're being asked to, go through a class or a task. So what my point being, the 80-20 sure does depend on your perspective.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And Jennifer, there's a lot of students that do really, really well that have figured out how to actually do it in the 20%. A lot of times,
Right.
they're the students that don't show up to class.
Well, I've developed computer applications and we have a little saying, you can't take 9 women and have a baby in 1 month.
That's a great saying. Wait, how does that? So you meaning?
The more people you involve, usually really, the longer it takes.
Interesting. Yeah.
That's a good point. Yes.
So you got a larger, of course, I guess, what is that school teaching methodology? The Italian one?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. It's the yeah. It's like the
Montessori.
Yeah,
Montessori. They have a method to where they could teach more children and record results of where that child's at and communicate that to parents easier than some other methodologies of teaching. I'm just using teaching as an example, but I think that's quite interesting. We just have to think about the way we're doing things and how can we do them differently.
I agree with that. And that's sort of the conclusion we've had in our discussions, is that there's so much room for improving our systems. I'm sure the teachers see it, the students see it. It's just, I wish we could do that in the education program and in all the jobs. It's not just education.
Jennifer, I love that. So that actually is a great summary. There's so much room for improvement in these systems, and there's so much room for us to individually improve, like our time management, to create balance.
And if a physician is having to spend 40 minutes recording a 7-minute visit, they need some work on their computer. That's all I can say.
Karen,
And I can say that as a professional computer person.
Karen, if you want to start another business, you'll be living on a yacht next year. So, hey,
you mean I'm going to have to wade through? I'm going to have to wade through all the government regulations.
Yeah.
But that's a fair point. We ended up having to hire scribes for some of our slower physicians so that they could be able to see as many patients as they used to could when it was paper only. Yep. When it went to computer and they were slow in their computer skills, having somebody who was 22 years old and rapid in their computer skills, following them around like a puppy dog, it improved productivity tremendously.
And it totally makes sense, because you take the physician from spending 80% of their time in the computer and you have them do the 20%, which they're more productive at, which is seeing patients.
Well, and it's more than just that. Either they're bogged down with legal, with government regulation, or they're bogged down with systems that are not easy to follow and easy to input your data to.
Yeah. Hey, Jennifer, in regards to school, an 80-20 to look for is I had a class where 80% of my grades came from 3 assignments, and I did those 3 assignments, and I really, really did not spend any time on the other 20s, and I got 50s on those. I finished the class with like a 90. And that was good enough for me. I decided, I'm not going to spend all the hours on this homework because I was working at the time. And so I lost a bunch of points because it wasn't worth my time.
Right. You got to look at the strategy and know know the system.
I love it. So let's look at the strategy of our lives. So that's kind of, so I love where you're going with that. Okay. Another point. So if we're strategizing our lives, looking for things that we should focus on, looking for things that we should eliminate, one of the biggest things we should eliminate is multitasking. All kinds of research being done on multitasking. Y'all know what they all say. Just off the top of y'all's head, y'all might know this. We all think multitasking is good, but when we actually look into it, what is it?
Hogwash.
Big waste of time. You don't do anything well when you're multitasking. So
I don't even think you can truly multitask. You sequentially task from one to the next back to the first very quickly, but you're still not multitasking. You're doing one at a time.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, your brain can only process one instruction at a time. It might take milliseconds to do that, but contrary to popular belief, only one gets processed at a time.
And so if your email's always open, whether or not you call that multitasking, but every single time you get a buzz alert of your email, we all know multitasking doesn't work, but
I do multitasking all the time. When you have preschoolers and kids, you have to multitask.
But it does slow you down, and recognizing that you cannot output what you could if you were not multitasking is key. It does slow you down when you have to be interrupted and lose your train of thought on one thing. Then there's a little bit of time in getting that train of thought back.
Like taking the kids to the grocery store with you. Now you're watching kids and trying to remember what you're trying to buy versus you going on your own. There's no doubt you could do it faster on your own.
I've done that for years. Take kids grocery shopping. I mean, I guess I've just done it for years. It's second nature, but I include them in, they have to help me find different, I do a learning as we go.
And
You're
They have
doing
to-
more than just grocery shopping. You're you're educating your kids as they go.
Right.
And
But, I mean-
moms do multitask. So
Yeah.
they're the only, when you're playing mom, you're going to have to multitask.
Right.
But professionally, if you can ever avoid it, definitely do.
Or recognize it's just going to take you more time to get things done and fit that into the schedule.
Yep.
You know?
And think about this as building a case to your employer or to your clients. Hello, employer, like Karen with you, like, hey, I need you to answer this email that I sent you 15 minutes ago. And they just sent you another email. Like, hey, I'm focused on a task. I'm not going to be able to do either task because we know multitasking doesn't work. So please see my email schedules. Thank you for understanding so that I can be more effective to.
That wouldn't go over with the boss too well.
Well, you can do
And,
it.
and if I did it to the user, the end user, they would go to their boss and their boss would go to mine.
Well, you don't say it as snidely as I did.
I know, but I've tried it. I've did it nicely, but I've tried it. Yeah, it's hard. I just have to know that I just have to push back. Like I had to push back. I literally went through a month of those types of interruptions
Mhm.
about a month ago. And so I went out on my schedule and I moved everything that I hadn't got done out a month. And I immediately got a phone call from the director of the department.
Hmm.
And I bucked. In a nice way. I did buck it. And I won. It took about a week, but
Yes,
finally
so
they came
again-
back. Finally, they
again-
walked into my office and said, okay, well, this is what we're trying to do. It's the only reason why we were asking. I was like, yeah, sure. Okay.
It is a little bit uncomfortable. So
Yeah.
that's kind of why I prefaced it with it might be uncomfortable, but at the end of the day, because once you actually begin to apply these things, your boss and clients are going to notice that you actually are more productive. And so that, because again, this is not smoke and mirrors. This is about actually increasing your productivity and focus. So-
Right.
So, okay, what do you do instead of multitasking and being on your screen, wasting time on things that aren't effective and make you sad, and having your email all the time? Well, instead, like, dedicate time to focus. So the Pomodoro method is a really common one. It's been one that I've been doing recently that I really like. There's all kinds of different ways to practice deep work, but the Pomodoro method is 25 minutes of unbroken concentration with a 10-minute break. Some people say 5-minute break, but if you really focus on those 25 minutes, you're probably going to need a 10-minute break. And they say when it's been studied, after like 4 Pomodoros, after less than 2 hours of really focused work, you really actually need a much longer break, because really focusing like that takes up a lot of energy and a lot of brain power. So has anybody ever practiced Pomodoro? Have you ever heard of that?
Oh, we have to. We could go 2 hours deep into something.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so let me
Coding.
explain. When you look up a word in the dictionary and there's 3 other words in that definition, you gotta go look those up.
Yeah.
Then you go look those up, and oh no, I only have 10 fingers, to hold my places in the dictionary. Okay, we have to do that mentally.
Yeah.
In my job. So to get pulled out of it is not good, but it really delays us big time. But that's the reason why we have a frontier help desk that screens our calls, which doesn't work very well. But
It sounded promising. I mean, it sounded
yeah.
like
So you hear these jokes about the programmer that's working at 3:00 in the morning and the only place where he can get something to eat is down in the vending machine. So they're drinking Cokes and eating little cakes and potato chips out of the vending machine because they've come up for air and they're hungry and they have nothing to eat.
Yeah, I've always heard the Mountain Dew and Twinkies.
Yeah.
Deep work though there's a book just called Deep Work. It's super helpful. Like really few people actually ever really practice deep work, where we really get to our most focused. It's kind of a skill you need to develop. I've attached a link to the Pomodoro method here that y'all can kind of watch after which hopefully will help you structure like your most important priorities that need your biggest focus. What's the best time to work? This can be a little bit individualized. Some people like work really well in the evening, but it kind of is just wherever your energy levels sync best. But for most people, it's like 9 to 11 is like the best time in your day to do good hard work. And then you'll get like a little bit in like the afternoon, maybe like after, not directly after lunch, but once that food digests, like 2:30 to 3:30 is another good time, but it's not as good as 9 to 11. And then some people do have like an evening time. Accomplishing the most important tasks when you're at your best, usually in the morning, and then checking email, news, phone, text after those tasks are complete. How many people check their phone first thing in the morning?
I do.
Anybody else? Jennifer?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
What do you check on your phone? Do you go to news? Do you go to Facebook? Do you go to your texts?
Text first because I need to see if my kids have been trying to reach me.
Right.
And then usually email and then news.
Email, news. I heard someone say, when you check the news in the morning, especially like first thing, you're already letting something that you can't control direct your day.
That is so true. Exactly. And I have said that to myself. Well, set this thought aside because there's not a darn thing you can do about it.
Yeah, it's seriously, Jennifer, I'm working on it too. I go through phases where I do really well and then I kind of regress. But yeah, so you have a plan for the day of some important things that you want to accomplish, and then Facebook tells you what you need to do, or the New York Times tells you what you need to do. Like, man, it's a bad start to a day. So,
Right.
Again, most of us know
We
that.
need to get back to the 6 p.m. news.
No, so block your news time. If checking the news is important to you, it's becoming less important to me, but it feels important still. Block your news time. So I save articles, I put them into my notes, and I say I'm going to read these tonight at 5:00, like right when I get off work. And then usually I'll get off work and I'll say, no, I'd rather go to the gym or go play basketball outside or something. But yeah, blocking your news time is huge as well.
Yeah.
The worst all around would be responding to an email during a meeting while checking the news. In a meeting that you don't need to be at.
I've done that.
Yeah, I know, we all have. Okay, so review, be effective with email, not sporadic. Again, I'm not telling you not to check your email. I'm telling you structure your email so that you can actually give it your attention. And then communicating that to the employees, coworkers, and bosses around you is important as well. Give yourself an honest evaluation by looking at your screen time. Seriously, right when this call ends, pull up your screen time. You're gonna be shocked at how much time you spend on your phone. And a lot of it's going to be work time. Some of it's going to be multitasking time. 80-20, shift to identify the unimportant work that you're doing that just caused you to be really busy, and see if there's someone else on your team that can eliminate it for you. See if you can eliminate it altogether or change your systems. And then do not multitask, because when you're multitasking, you're actually not doing anything. And if you are multitasking for 3 hours a day, man, like, could you save yourself 3 hours or could you save yourself 2 hours by actually just chunking those up and doing those tasks 1 hour? For further study, I would strongly recommend this book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry: How to Stay Emotionally Healthy and Spiritually Alive in the Chaos of the Modern World. This pastor, John Mark Comer, created a church that was like turned into a mega church, and he had like a 14-person staff, and he was speaking internationally, and he realized that he had turned his church into like a hustle startup business, and he just said, I can't do it anymore. And so he totally redirected his life and has found a way to incorporate ancient spiritual disciplines into his modern world life, and it's really powerful. It's very applicable. It's like a coaching book. It's very applicable to non-pastors. It's applicable to people who hunger and crave to do more in their lives and to focus on the important things in their lives. And if you are super busy and you can't read that book, I would go ahead and start with the podcast, which is Fight, Hustle, and Hurry podcast. It'll be linked in these slides. finally, if you go through this and in a couple of months, you have become effective with your email, your screen time, your wasted screen time in particular has gone down a good amount. And you you're not multitasking. You've identified tasks that are not super important, and you focus more on the important things, and you're moving in the right direction. You might want a coach, not a health coach. You might want a productivity or life coach that can kind of help you dive and dig further into those important things. So, this is something that you might want to learn from somebody who's already really focused and redesigned their lives to the important things. So I think that's all I got for y'all now. Any final notes that y'all have?
No, this was good. You're going to post this, right?
Yep.
Where we can get those those podcasts and that book.
Yep. I'm gonna post it, and I'll attach the slides. And if y'all have any questions, please let me know. Also, give me some feedback. I'm certainly not trying to be preachy or anything with this. Again, this is from a perspective of people having a hard time taking control of their life and health because of some of these issues. And so I'm trying to really just focus on the things that I've found to be helpful. So I'd love some feedback on that.
Oh, I don't feel that way at all. I feel like it's a help.
Okay,
I said you were meddling, not preaching.
I thought it's good too.
Okay, good. If I ever say anything that seems like, oh, that's a platitude and it's not helpful and it's patronizing, let me know on that. But I really do think there's a lot, Jennifer, just like you said, we look at the school system, we say there's some really obvious ways to improve that system. I think if we have an honest assessment of our lives, even if we're really busy, even if we've got a lot of obligations, we're going to be able to make some really big improvements